Oh my God, you guys, I honestly don't even know where to begin with this one. My husband beat me. He actually laid his hands on me, all because I refused to live with his mother. Can you believe that? Was I wrong for standing my ground? Tell me, honestly, would you have done the same thing if your spouse, the person who swore to love and protect you, turned into a monster over something so utterly ridiculous? I've replayed it 1,000 times in my head, and every single time, I come to the same conclusion, but I need to hear it from you. Did I deserve that? Did I push him too far? Or was his reaction completely, utterly inexcusable? Before I get into the absolute madness that unfolded, I need to take you back a little, to a time when I actually believed I had a good marriage, a stable life, and a future that wasn't filled with fear and betrayal. It all started so innocently, didn't it? Most stories of heartbreak and abuse often do. I met Mark at a friend's wedding. He was charming, witty, and incredibly handsome. He had this way of making me laugh until my sides hurt, and his eyes, oh his eyes, they just sparkled with a kindness that I found irresistible. We dated for 2 years, and those were, without a doubt, the happiest 2 years of my life. He was attentive, supportive, and always made me feel like I was the most important person in the world. He'd bring me flowers for no reason, plan surprise weekend getaways, and just generally make me feel cherished. My friends adore him, my family welcomed him with open arms, and I truly believed I had found my soulmate. We talked about everything, our dreams, our fears, our futures. We discussed marriage, children, where we'd live, how we'd raise a family. Everything seemed perfectly aligned. The only tiny, almost imperceptible red flag, looking back, was his mother, Evelyn. Evelyn was, well, she was a force of nature. She was fiercely protective of Mark, which I initially found endearing. It showed how much she loved him, right? But her protectiveness often veered into possessiveness. During our dating period, she'd call him multiple times a day, even when we were on dates. She'd offer unsolicited advice about our relationship, about my appearance, about our future plans. Mark would usually just brush it off, laugh it away, saying, "Oh, that's just mom being mom." I tried to be understanding. I truly did. I figured every family had their quirks, and I was willing to navigate them for the man I loved. When Mark proposed, I was over the moon. It was a beautiful, romantic proposal, exactly what I had always dreamed of. We started planning the wedding, and that's when Evelyn's involvement escalated from mere suggestions to outright demands. She insisted on a specific venue, a specific caterer, even a specific guest list that included people neither Mark nor I even knew. Mark, to his credit, tried to mediate. He gently pushed back, but Evelyn had a way of wearing him down. She'd play the victim, making him feel guilty, saying things like, "After all I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" It was emotional manipulation, pure and simple, but Mark was so conditioned to it that he barely seemed to notice. I, however, noticed everything. I saw how he'd wilt under her gaze, how he'd agree to things he clearly didn't want to, just to keep the peace. I tried to talk to him about it, expressing my concerns about Evelyn's overbearing nature, but he'd always downplay it. "She just loves me, honey. It's harmless." Harmless. If only I had known then what I know now. We eventually got married, a beautiful ceremony, despite Evelyn's best efforts to turn it into her own personal spectacle. For the first few years of our marriage, things were good. We bought a small house, decorated it together, and settled into a comfortable routine. Mark was still the loving, attentive husband I had fallen in love with. Evelyn was still Evelyn, but her influence seemed to wane slightly now that we had our own space. She'd still call, still drop by unannounced, but we had more control over our lives. Then, things took a turn. Evelyn's health started to decline. Nothing life-threatening, but she needed more assistance, more care. She lived alone, and Mark was her only child. Naturally, he felt a responsibility to help her. I understood that completely. I offered to help, to hire a caregiver, to visit her regularly. I was genuinely empathetic to her situation. But then came the suggestion. Not a suggestion, really, but a pronouncement from Evelyn, delivered with a sigh and a dramatic flair. I just can't manage on my own anymore, dear. I think it's time I moved in with you too. My blood ran cold. I exchanged a glance with Mark, expecting him to immediately shut it down, to say, "Mother, we need to discuss other options." But he didn't. He just looked at me, a pleading expression in his eyes. Later that night, after Evelyn had left, we had our first serious argument about it. Mark brought it up, saying, "Honey, we need to talk about Mom moving in." I was flabbergasted. "Mark, we can't.
You know how she is.
She'll take over everything. Our house, our lives, our marriage. We won't have a moment of peace." He tried to reason with me, saying, "She's sick. She needs us. What else are we supposed to do? Put her in a home?" I countered with, "No, of course not. But we can hire help. We can visit her every day, bring her meals. We can convert the spare room into a small apartment for her in her own house if she needs more care but wants her independence. We can support her financially. There are so many options that don't involve her moving into our home." I reminded him of all the times Evelyn had undermined me, criticized me, inserted herself into our private conversations. I reminded him of the arguments we'd had because of her. I reminded him of us. Mark was torn. I could see it in his eyes. He loved his mother, and he felt a deep sense of obligation, but he also knew, deep down, that living with her would be a nightmare for our relationship. He tried to compromise. What if it's just for a little while, until she gets back on her feet? But I knew Evelyn. A little while would turn into forever. She would never leave. And honestly, I wasn't willing to sacrifice my peace, my sanity, and my marriage for a woman who had consistently made me feel less than, all in the name of her possessive love for her son. I stood firm. I told him, as calmly and as lovingly as I could, that I would not agree to her moving in. I offered every other possible solution, every form of support, but living under the same roof was a non-starter for me. And that's when the shift began. The charming, witty, kind Mark started to disappear, replaced by a brooding, resentful stranger. He became withdrawn, quiet. The laughter stopped. The affectionate gestures ceased. Every conversation felt like walking on eggshells. Evelyn, of course, sensed the tension and used it to her advantage. She'd call Mark, weeping about her loneliness, her failing health, her ungrateful daughter-in-law who hated her. She painted me as the villain, the cruel woman who was denying a sick old lady comfort in her final years. Mark, already feeling guilty, absorbed all of it. He started staying out later, coming home with a cloud of anger hanging over him. He'd snap at me over trivial things, accuse me of being selfish, of not caring about his mother. Our home, once a sanctuary, became a battlefield of unspoken resentments and simmering rage. The pressure mounted. Evelyn was relentless, and Mark was crumbling under it. One evening, he came home, visibly agitated. He'd been at his mother's all day, and I knew what was coming. He walked into the living room where I was reading, and without even a greeting, he said, his voice cold and hard, "Mother is moving in next week. I've already told her." My heart sank. I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. He had gone behind my back. He had made a life-altering decision for both of us without my consent, without even a discussion. "You did what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You heard me," he spat, his eyes narrowed. "She's my mother.
She needs me.
And if you can't deal with that, then too bad." I stood up, my hands trembling. "Mark, we talked about this. I told you how I feel. How could you just decide this without me? This is our home, our marriage, our life." He took a step closer, his face contorted with anger. "She has nowhere else to go. Are you seriously telling me you're going to kick my sick mother out on the street? You're heartless, you know that? Selfish. All you care about is yourself." The words stung, but they also fueled a fire within me. I was not selfish. I had offered every alternative. I had tried to protect our marriage, our peace. "No, Mark," I said, my voice rising. "What you're doing is disrespectful. You're sacrificing our marriage for your mother's demands. You're letting her control you, control us. And I won't stand for it. And that's when it happened. In a flash, his hand shot out. The force of the blow sent me reeling, my head snapping back, a searing pain exploding in my cheek. I stumbled, clutching my face, my ears ringing. I could taste blood in my mouth. For a moment, time stood still. I stared at him, my husband, the man I loved, the man who had just hit me. His eyes, once sparkling with kindness, were now filled with a terrifying rage, a darkness I had never seen before. He looked almost surprised himself, his chest heaving, his fist still clenched. But then the rage returned, even stronger. You pushed me too far, he roared, taking another step towards me. You always push me too far. You want to control everything. You want to alienate me from my own mother. You deserve this. He raised his hand again, and this time, I didn't just stand there. Something snapped inside me. The shock, the pain, the betrayal, it all coalesced into a fierce, primal instinct to survive. I ducked, grabbing a heavy glass vase from the side table. I didn't think. I just reacted. I swung it, not aiming to hurt him, but to create a barrier, to buy myself time. The vase shattered against the wall behind him, the sound echoing through the suddenly silent house. He froze, startled by my unexpected defiance. That split second was all I needed. I turned and ran, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I didn't grab my purse, my phone, nothing. Just the clothes on my back and the terrifying realization that my life had just irrevocably changed. I ran out the front door, into the cold night air, not knowing where I was going, just knowing I had to get away. I could hear him shouting my name, his voice a mixture of anger and something else, something like fear, but I didn't look back. I just ran. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs ached, until I couldn't run anymore. I ended up at a small, dimly lit park bench, shivering, tears streaming down my face, the taste of blood still in my mouth. My cheek throbbed, a brutal reminder of what had just happened. My husband, the man I swore to spend my life with, had beaten me. Over his mother. The reality of it crashed down on me, heavy and suffocating. My perfect life, my stable marriage, it was all a lie. It was a shattered illusion. I pulled out my phone, which thankfully I always kept in my pocket, and called my best friend, Sarah. I choked out the words, sobbing uncontrollably, explaining what had happened. Sarah, bless her heart, didn't hesitate. She told me to stay put, that she was coming to get me. Within 15 minutes, her car pulled up. She saw my face, the bruising already starting to show, and her own face went pale with shock and fury. She hugged me tight, murmuring comforting words, but I could feel her shaking with anger. She drove me to her place, helped me clean up, and insisted on taking me to the emergency room, just to make sure I didn't have a concussion or anything worse. Thankfully, it was just a severe bruise and a cut on the inside of my lip. But the emotional wounds were far deeper. I spent the next few days at Sarah's, a shell of myself. I barely ate, barely slept. Every time my phone rang, I jumped, fearing it was Mark.
And it was.
He called repeatedly, sent texts, some apologetic, some angry, all of them manipulative. He tried to gaslight me, saying I provoked him, that I made him do it. He said he was sorry, that he lost control, that he loved me, that he couldn't live without me. He pleaded, he begged, he threatened. He even had Evelyn call me, feigning concern, telling me I was being unreasonable, that I was tearing their family apart. It was a full-court press of emotional abuse, and it only solidified my decision. There was no going back from this. He had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. My trust was shattered, my love extinguished, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I started thinking about everything, all the little things I had dismissed as harmless quirks. Evelyn's constant interference, Mark's inability to stand up to her, his gradual transformation into a bitter, resentful man. It wasn't just about the punch. It was about the years of subtle erosion, the slow chipping away at our autonomy, our relationship, our happiness. This was the culmination of a toxic dynamic that I had, for too long, excused. I knew I needed to protect myself, not just physically, but emotionally and financially. Sarah, a fiercely loyal friend, helped me formulate a plan. We contacted a lawyer, discreetly, keeping everything under wraps. I didn't want Mark to know what I was doing, not yet. I knew he was volatile, and I feared what he might do if he realized I was actually leaving him. The lawyer advised me on getting a restraining order, filing for divorce, and securing my assets. It was overwhelming, a mountain of legal jargon and painful decisions, but I knew it was necessary. I still had things at the house, things I needed to retrieve. My personal belongings, important documents, sentimental items. I couldn't just walk away from everything. I also needed to get my car, which was still parked in our driveway. The thought of going back filled me with dread, but I knew it had to be done. Sarah offered to come with me, but I insisted on going alone. I wanted to face this on my own terms, to prove to myself that I was strong enough to do it. Plus, I didn't want to put her in any danger. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I was bruised, betrayed, and terrified, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity, a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. Before I tell you what happened next, what I did to reclaim my life and ensure that Mark and his mother would never, ever mess with me again, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have gone back to the house? Would you have confronted him? Would you have just cut your losses and run as far as you could? What would be your next move in this absolute nightmare? Okay, so after a few days of planning and emotional preparation, I decided to go back to the house. But not alone, not exactly. I had my lawyer arrange for a police escort. I wasn't taking any chances. I wanted to retrieve my belongings safely and ensure that Mark couldn't physically intimidate me again. It was a Tuesday afternoon when we arrived. The patrol car pulled up to the curb, and two officers, a man and a woman, got out. They were professional and reassuring. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest, and walked towards the front door of what used to be my home. The officers waited a few steps behind me. I had a spare key, and I unlocked the door, pushing it open slowly. The house was quiet, eerily so. Mark's car wasn't in the driveway, which was a small relief. I walked inside, the officers following close behind. The living room looked exactly as I had left it, except for the shattered vase against the wall, a stark reminder of the violence. I walked directly to our bedroom, and that's when I saw it. Evelyn. She was sitting on the edge of our bed, casually flipping through one of my photo albums. Our photo album. She looked up when I entered, a smug, triumphant look on her face. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw the police officers behind me. Well, look who it is, she said, her voice dripping with venom. Come crawling back, have we? I ignored her, walking straight to my side of the closet. I started pulling out my clothes, throwing them into a duffel bag I had brought. What are you doing? She demanded, standing up. Mark will be furious. You can't just take things. This is his house. It's our house, Evelyn, and these are my things, I replied, my voice steady, despite the tremor in my hands. And you have no right to be in my bedroom, going through my personal belongings. One of the officers stepped forward. Ma'am, please do not interfere. She is legally entitled to retrieve her personal property. Evelyn scoffed, but she backed away slightly. I quickly packed my essentials, clothes, toiletries, a few sentimental items. Then I went to my office, grabbing important documents, my laptop, and anything else that was mine. As I was gathering my things, Evelyn continued to spew her hateful words. You're throwing away a good marriage for nothing. My son loves you, despite your selfishness. You're making a huge mistake. You'll regret this, you hear me? You'll be alone. Just you wait. Her words were designed to hurt, to break me, but surprisingly, they just made me stronger. Her cruelty was a stark reminder of why I was doing this. I finished packing and was about to leave when I heard a car pull into the driveway. My blood ran cold.
Mark.
The officers exchanged a glance. Looks like your husband is home, the male officer said calmly. Mark burst through the front door, his face a mask of anger. He saw me, Then he saw the police officers, and his face instantly contorted into a snarl. "What the hell is going on here? What are they doing here?" he roared, pointing at the officers. "She's stealing my things. She's trying to ruin me." Evelyn, sensing an ally, chimed in. "She's trying to take everything, Mark. She's leaving you." The female officer stepped forward, holding up a hand. "Sir, please calm down. Your wife is here to retrieve her personal belongings. We are here to ensure there are no disturbances." Mark ignored her, his eyes fixed on me, burning with a dangerous intensity. "You really think you can just walk away? After everything? After what you put me through? You think you can just abandon me and my mother?" "Mark, you crossed a line," I said, my voice surprisingly strong. "You put your hands on me.
There's no coming back from that.
I'm divorcing you." The word divorcing hit him like a physical blow. His face went slack, his anger momentarily replaced by shock. "Divorcing? You can't be serious. This is ridiculous. We can fix this." I said I was sorry. "Sorry isn't enough, Mark. Not for this." The male officer interjected. "Sir, your wife has the right to divorce. She has also informed us of a domestic violence incident, and we have noted the bruising on her face." Mark's eyes darted to my cheek, then back to the officer, a flicker of panic in his gaze. He knew he was in deep trouble. "She provoked me. She was yelling at me. She pushed me to my limit," he stammered, trying to justify his actions. "There are no excuses for domestic violence, sir," the officer stated firmly. "If you continue to be aggressive or try to prevent your wife from leaving, we'll have to take further action." Evelyn, bless her delusional heart, tried to intervene. "This is outrageous. She's lying. My son would never hurt her. She's making it all up to get money." The female officer turned to Evelyn. "Ma'am, please step back. Any further interference, and you will be charged with obstruction." Evelyn, for once, fell silent, her face a mixture of shock and indignation. I continued to gather my few remaining items, feeling a surge of empowerment. Mark just stood there, watching me, his initial rage slowly morphing into a desperate plea. "Please, honey, don't do this. I love you. We can go to therapy. We can make it work. Just don't leave me." The words, once so meaningful, now sounded hollow and pathetic. I finished packing, closed my duffel bag, and slung it over my shoulder. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw not the man I married, but a broken, manipulative shell. "Goodbye, Mark," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "It's over." I walked out of the house, the officers flanking me, leaving him and his mother standing in the living room, their faces etched with disbelief and anger. I got into my car, which the officers had directed me to, and drove away, leaving behind the wreckage of my marriage. That wasn't the end of it, of course. The divorce proceedings were ugly, as expected. Mark fought me every step of the way, denying the abuse, trying to paint me as the villain. Evelyn naturally supported him, fabricating stories, trying to discredit me. But I had the police report, the photographs of my bruises, and the testimony of my therapist, who confirmed the emotional toll the abuse had taken. The court sided with me. I got the divorce, a substantial alimony settlement, and a permanent restraining order against Mark. It was a long, draining process, but finally I was free. I sold my share of the house, cut all ties with Mark and Evelyn, and started building a new life for myself. It wasn't easy. The trauma lingered, and the emotional scars took a long time to heal. But with the support of my friends, therapy, and a newfound sense of self-worth, I slowly, but surely, pieced myself back together. I learned to trust again, to laugh again, to live again. My journey was incredibly painful, but it also taught me invaluable lessons about self-respect, boundaries, and recognizing the warning signs of toxic relationships. I learned that true love doesn't involve control, manipulation, or violence. It involves respect, trust, and unwavering support. And most importantly, I learned that my peace and safety are non-negotiable. So, if you're watching this and you're in a similar situation, please know that you are not alone. You deserve to be safe, to be happy, and to be respected. Don't let anyone, not even the people you love, make you feel otherwise. You have the strength to leave, to reclaim your life, and to build a future where you are truly valued. Like this video if you were on my side, if you believe that no one deserves to be beaten for standing their ground. Subscribe for more stories like this, stories of survival, resilience, and reclaiming power. And share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comment section. What would you have done differently? What advice would you give to someone going through something similar? I'll see you all in the next story.